Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. I'm your host, Kenny Bedwell, and we are talking about pricing strategies that will change your revenue. So, I wanted to bring in one of the best revenue managers out there. This man is from Colorado. I think he's originally from Colorado or somewhere around there and out west. Former firefighter, too. So, ladies, you got to check this out on you. I'm just kidding. He's married. So, and I failed to mention. So, this guy, he's got a revenue management company. He's got STRs, great qualified. But the number one thing that I remember this guy for is showing up to a conference in a lumberjack costume and like the hair and everything. Anyway, so this is going to be a fun episode, very insightful, lots of data metrics and things. So if you're into that, take notes. You're going to learn a lot about how to price your STR so you can maximize your revenue. So without further ado, Jake Cohen, tell us more about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Kenny. Super excited to be here. First of all, I don't know why you had to show everybody how much shorter than I am than you with the way you're
Man, throwing me under the bus right from the get-go.
You're good.
Anyways,
hey everybody. My name's Jake Cohen. I am the founder of Step by Step B&B. We are revenue managers, and I think there's two things that are kind of interesting about our company. One, we do have a revenue management course that we are now offering. So I know a lot of people were out there looking for revenue management services, and we do offer that. We have over 300 listings currently on board with our company. And but we are also offering a small group revenue management course. And we're about halfway through our first version of that. We will be doing another version, which will be starting sometime in the July to August timeframe. And a little bit about me. I grew up in the hospitality world. My folks owned a bed and breakfast. So from 10 on, I basically have been involved in hospitality. But I've done a little bit of everything in my life. So I was a firefighter for 7 years. I was a CrossFit coach. I was part of a startup foods company. Been doing a little bit of everything my whole life. And my favorite part about what I do now is building the business and helping my employees succeed and see them exceed their expectations. So that's what I'm super excited about.
Cool. Well, so you have short-term rentals in Colorado. Anywhere else?
No, I used to have more short-term rentals, but been kind of in a downsizing phase as I realized how much time the revenue management business was taking. And I said, you know what? I think the pivot right now is spend more time on revenue management and a little less time actually managing short-term rentals. So I just sold my place in Gulf Shores in December. And we've sold a couple places in the Denver area over the last 2 years as well. So we only have one property that we are short-term renting, but we do have 3 units.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. No, I feel you, man. I did 6 at one point, and honestly, the time, the energy compared to where you could take that same bandwidth and put it somewhere else, I was just like, yeah, no, I can do something. So I kept downsized, and now I'm slowly starting to grow again. But yeah, just it's being strategic, and I think that's important. It's not about doors or units; it's all about quality, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's been one of the big things is I realized some of the properties I had were not something I could make the quality that I wanted to be long term. And I think that's one of the other things that I've really appreciated about you is your understanding of market value and understanding what revenue you can get. And I think you finally pushed me over the edge on my property that I still have to do a big renovation. I'm working with Paige Hayes, and she's really helping me totally re-envision my biggest property. And I'm hoping to hit $400,000 a year on the one property we're keeping.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I'm trying to get Paige to help me. She agreed reluctantly, probably, to like redesign my office.
Nice.
Not even a property, just like my office was like, Age, I want to make this like a really cool like podcasts and desk and backdrop and everything. And so she's trying to help me out with that. But
yeah, maybe I can get her to do the same for me. Get an awkward window above my head, and yes.
Yeah, so we're working on that. But yeah, that's awesome. So Paige Hayes, everybody. Good designer. She won't do your offices though. She likes doing full albums.
Do not call her about doing your office. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So what I wanted to dive into, obviously, Dave, is your specialty, which is revenue management. And I think one of the things that when we talked before the show, one of the things that you said that stuck out to me is this idea of like the cornerstone of building your pricing and revenue management out for your listing. So let's talk about that. What is the cornerstone?
Yeah, for me, the cornerstone of short-term rental pricing is really based around seasonality. And the reason I think seasonality is so important is because our properties react totally differently in the market during high season than what they do in low season. So for me, the way I look at it is a lot of people just think about there's one line essentially in their property. This is my pricing line, and obviously it goes up and down with the seasons. But what they don't think about is that there's totally different market dynamics, right? If we're talking high season, and say high season you average 75% occupancy, that means only 25% of the market is going on book. But during low season, it might be flipped. Only 25% of the market might be getting booked, and 75% of the market is available. During those low season times, I can't send the same value proposition as what I sent in high season, because in high season, I can maybe bump my price up a little from my median. And what I always talk about is, say my base price puts me at the 50th percentile line. Okay, let's just use that as an example in the market. We say, okay, I'm at the 50th percentile line. During high season, I can probably bump my base price up to more like maybe 60%, because I know that I'm competing against basically less number of available listings, because a lot of them are already going to get booked, right? So I just have to be better than the 25% that are not going to get booked. So I'm able to bump my price up a little more during those high seasons, and then vice versa in low season, we really have to bring our price way down. And this is where a lot of people make a mistake, is they think, well, I get $500 a night on the weekend in high season. And because of that, I'm not bringing my price down lower than $250. Well, during low season, you're competing against 3-4 times as many people for that booking, essentially, because so many fewer places are getting booked. So what you have to do is provide a value proposition. So I'm at 50th percentile. I'm going to drop myself down to maybe 25th percentile in the market. Now, my property, which is a 50th percentile property, is next to all these 25th percentile properties, right? And the 25th percentile properties are not as nice as mine. I have better photos. I have a better listing. I have better amenities. So people are going to look at my property and they're say, this is $100. And they're going to look at the 25th percentile properties and say, these are $100. I'm going to get booked first every single time. And in seasonality, I think that's super important. Knowing when you want to be booked first and when it's okay to maybe be booked a little later, because you're comfortable that you're still going to get booked in the long run.
That's really good stuff, Jake. I want to throw a softball question at you. Okay, Lob. Hopefully it's softball. We'll see. Does it make sense to... I see people do this mistake all the time. They're saying, I'm priced at the 50th percentile. Therefore, I will make the average revenue for my market. Does it work like that?
No, definitely does not work like that. I think this is one of those things that property managers tout. A property manager will say, our average ADR is $700 a night. And they'll say, because of that, we're going to make you more money. The average ADR in the market is only $435. And you're like, great, I'm going to make so much more money. But what they don't tell you is you're going to get booked half as much, right? So if we do the math on that and we extrapolate it out, we're like, actually, I just made, you know, I don't know, a quarter less or something like that because the property manager said they were going to charge more. And I think there's a very, very common misconception. And I think having that variability in your price allows you to make significantly more money. If we looked at my properties that are in Steamboat, I've been running the same properties for about 8 years now. I have a ton of data on them, and it's super easy for me to compare across the market and see everything because I have all this data. And it's really funny because if you look at my average ADR, I'm not even 50th percentile, but I am number 3 in my market in 3-bedroom units. And there's about, I don't know, 400 units or something in Steamboat that are 3-bedroom units. I am not ski in, ski out. I do not have all the amazing amenities that most people do. But I'm doing an amazing job of getting booked during the low season. And if you look at the average ADR in my market, it's like 48%. Okay. I run 80 to 85% occupancy in my market. And the way I do that is I'm still booking the same ADR on the weekends as everybody else. But during the midweeks, when we go down to like 40% occupancy, I'm willing to come down enough to get it booked. During the low season, when we run like 12 to 15% occupancy, I'm way down. I'm taking contractors, I'm taking, workers and stuff like that because I know if I earn $100 a night, that's $3,000. That's enough to take care of my mortgage on that property. It's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. Yeah. So it's really important for people to understand revenue is made up of ADR and occupancy, not just ADR. So even if you're in the slow season and you're pricing in the 20th percentile, I think also you got to think about it too. Like people aren't like there's a lag in like revenue management and pricing strategies for people, right? They're reactionary. And I see a lot of folks like they typically price too high. So like properties
In the quote unquote 25th percentile might be priced.
higher than they should be, and so you lowering your prices at the right time in the right season gets you booked and actually makes you more money overall because of the occupancy. So yeah, it's a really I think it's a delicate balance of like how occupied do I want to be versus like the right ADR. So
And I think the perfect combination of what you're talking about is my favorite metric in short-term rentals is RevPAR. So a lot of people don't understand that RevPAR is essentially occupancy times ADR. It's not straight up occupancy times ADR. It's available occupancy times ADR. So if you have a block, and you blocked 5 days, then those 5 days are not taken into the calculation. But that's also not an opportunity for me to actually book the property because it's blocked. So how do we actually measure the revenue of the available days? And that's RevPAR. And so for me, when I look at
Sorry, can you?
you did an acronym there. What's RevPAR mean?
Sorry, I apologize.
All good.
Rev is I've spent too much time with my revenue managers. I don't have to explain these things anymore.
I'll catch you. Yeah, you're good.
RevPAR is revenue per available room, and it comes from the hotel industry. That's why it's room. Some people in the short-term rental world will do RevPAL, which is revenue per available listing. It's essentially the same metric, just with a slightly different act.
Okay, cool. All right, you keep going.
So RevPAR is my favorite metric because we're comparing occupancy, ADR, and revenue, basically all in one nice, succinct metric. So I feel like there's 4 big metrics in short-term rentals. There's revenue, there's occupancy, there's ADR, and there's RevPAR. And if I have to pick one to look at for health of the listing, I will take RevPAR every day.
Is there a particular RevPAR you're looking for, or like how are you judging like what's a good RevPAR for?
It's always going to be market dependent, listing dependent, because you're talking about essentially a metric of revenue per day. Essentially, is what it would break down to. So, if I have a 1-bedroom condo that's in the middle of nowhere, a good RevPAR might be like $12, but if I had a 12-bedroom house on the beach, it should be probably over $1,000. So it really depends on what you're looking for. But RevPAR multiplied out by 365, if you are available all 365 days a year, is your revenue. So you kind of have occupancy, ADR, and revenue all wrapped into this nice little package.
Yeah. So let's kind of take a step back. How does somebody calculate that?
Yeah, it's pretty simple, honestly. You take the number of days that you have available. So let's take a month as our example. So if we're trying to calculate our RevPAR for a month, and we said, okay, there's 30 days in the month, right? We can choose do we have all 30 days available? And for ease of calculation, it would probably be easiest to say, yes, we have all 30 days available. So then we're just multiplying out by 1. And then we take our occupancy percentage, right? And our occupancy percentage, let's say it's 50%. Okay. So occupancy, and what we're actually looking for is available occupancy. So say you only had 29 of 30 days available, then you would do the math on that. And then you would multiply whatever that fraction is, 0.98 times, times your occupancy of 0.5. And you would end up with 0.49 instead of 0.5 if you had all available days available. So let's use the 0.5. That's our occupancy, and that's our available occupancy. So no block days.
Okay.
Then we're going to multiply that by ADR, right? So ADR is a pretty simple calculation as well. You're taking every booking amount that you got and divide it by the number of days, right? So generally, when we're talking ADR, we're just talking rental revenue. So we're not talking cleaning fees, taxes, all that other stuff. But you can do a total ADR as well, like a total revenue ADR. But for ease, let's not get into that. Let's just talk about regular rental revenue. So essentially, I paid $280 for this night, $290 for this night, $150 for this night. You would add all of those up. And at the end of the month, we would say, okay, it's 5,000, let's say. Okay. So we have 5,000 as our total. And then we can divide that by the number of days that were booked, or multiply by our occupancy percentage, right? So we talked about a 0.5 was our occupancy. So 0.5 times 5,000. Man, I thought I was doing easy math on this, but I'm going to say that's 250.
Yes.
400?
No, so yeah, so you're saying 50%?
0.5 times 5,000.
Yeah, so it's 1/2 of 5,000. So it's
250.
So 250 would then be our RevPAR. We're basically just multiplying available occupancy times our average daily rate. So pretty cool to get to RevPAR. But I love that metric because obviously at the top of that, you could always multiply backwards. You could say, well, my occupancy was 50%, and you could calculate what your total revenue was if you had your occupancy and your ADR and your RevPAR.
Gotcha. So with that being said, that's interesting. So we got this, so we calculated this cool metric. Let's say it's 250 for a listing. How do we then go and figure that out for other listings to know where we sit? Because that's really how you're grading it, right? You're looking at this RevPAR metric and you're saying, cool, 250, but it's relative to everyone else in the market. So how are you getting the data from those other people?
Yeah, for me, the easiest way to grab data is just through PriceLabs. That's where I spend most of my time. PriceLabs does have a RevPAR metric for all of your listings, depending on how you set it up. So one of the first things we do when we get a new client is we create a comp set for them. And I think creating a comp set is an amazing skill to have. If you have questions about that, if you want to learn more about that, I have some free videos out there that help you to understand how to create a comp set. But PriceLabs has an amazing tool called a market dashboard. The market dashboard costs $10 a month if you want 1,000 listings of data. And I think with that 1,000 listings of data, you can create a really good comp set for your property. So say we identify, here's 30 listings that have the same amenities. They're essentially the same location that I am, relative to the important things in the market. And they also have hopefully similar like review scores and things like that, so that we're comparing essentially apples to apples.
Right.
And what we can do once we have that comp set established is we can look at that data, that RevPAR data through PriceLabs. You can look at it both in your neighborhood data page, and so you can look at very easily all the time, or you can look at it in your market dashboard page, which, it's just one more step, basically going to another page on your listing. But I feel like that's amazingly valuable. Now, if you wanted to calculate it, any of the general tools out there, STR Insights, or any of the other major tools that are out there, are going to, at a minimum, give you an ADR.
What other major tools are out there, Jake?
I don't know.
I don't know any other.
I don't know it. The only one I use is STR Insights, but I just want to say there could be others out there.
I love how you danced around that one, but
no, yeah, just a little respect when you're on the right person's podcast.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
but anyways, if you're on STR Insights or some other tool, you're going to get an ADR number and you're going to get an occupancy number. So if you want to calculate your RevPAR, we just kind of went through that process of what's the occupancy times the ADR, and that's your RevPAR. So pretty easy to do that calculation on your own if you wanted to do that, so that you have RevPAR metrics side by side for your property versus others.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. So that's like, you mentioned earlier, you said that's more of like a health and well-being, right? It's like, how did I do for the month?
Yeah, it can be a metric of health. It could also be a metric of, I feel like you want to understand as quickly as possible, how am I doing relative to the market? So could we do that with a revenue to revenue number and a occupancy to occupancy number and an ADR to ADR number? Sure. But those are 3 metrics. Or we could simplify it and we could say, let's just do RevPAR to RevPAR. So from a simplicity standpoint, I do like RevPAR in the sense that you can basically look at one metric side by side and say, how is my overall health of this listing versus my market or my comps?
I love it. Cool. Okay. So we've talked about setting up seasons. We talked about RevPAR. What are some of the other things, like I think you mentioned a few other ones. What are some of the other key components or factors that you really want to nail down with your pricing strategies?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that people gloss over is, we talked about seasons, how important it is to understand the difference between high season and low season. I make huge adjustment between seasons. Base price adjustments are totally different from one season to another season. The other thing that I think people forget about is a market booking window. And you can look at both the market booking window and you can also look at your listings booking window. So sometimes you'll see that if you have by far the best listing in the market, your booking window could be double what market booking window is. And it's not that you want to ignore the market booking window. You still want to be aware of what the market booking window is, but you may realize that your settings could skew a little closer towards what your true listing booking window is as opposed to what the true market booking window is. But I think most people have no idea that booking windows can swing from, I'll just give an example of a couple of markets that I'm very familiar with that I own in. In Steamboat, in high season, our average market booking window is about 100 days. And during low season, it's like 7 days. So if I treat my pricing program, to simplify what I'm talking about, the same during high season and low season, I'm throwing money out the window on one side or the other, because either I'm starting to discount way too soon because I'm saying, oh, my average market booking window is 50. Well, that would mean I'm starting to discount probably way too soon for those 7-day booking window periods. Or I'm throwing money out the window the other way because I say my average is 50 and I'm not high enough. I should be capturing at a much higher rate because people are booking 100 days out. So I think there's a lot of things that you can learn. And the way we look at it is minimum stay rules are super, super important to look at that market booking window, right? Because if you look at your market booking window and you see the vast majority of people are booking 7-day stays more than 4 months ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to accidentally take a 2-night stay and screw up the fact that I might get a 7-night booking. I'll drop down to the 2 nights as we get closer, as we get to say 15 days or 30 days. It makes sense because now more people are booking the 2-night stays. But a lot of people aren't doing that research. They're not understanding that the average booking that's coming in at a certain period of time can be totally different than what they have set in their minimum stay rules. And then I think the other side of that is your pricing, right? When are you charging a premium and when are you giving a discount? And the way we determine that is by looking at that median booking window and figuring out at what point am I past the normal booking window and I should probably charge a premium. And at what point am I inside that normal booking window and I should be offering a discount because now I just want to get booked.
Gotcha. That's really so. Just in those listening, booking window, how far in advance people are booking?
Correct. Yeah. Let me just one more time because booking window is also a tough terminology for a lot of people. Median means the middle. So median means 50% of people have already booked.
Yep.
And 50% of people still will book. So if your median booking window is 100 days, that means half of the people already booked more than 100 days in advance. So you don't want to look at that number and say, oh, it's 100. I need to make sure that my prices are set 100 days out. Really what that should tell you is like, no, you need to be prepared for people to book maybe 200 days out because half of the people have already booked at that point. So you have to really think through what is the reality of the market dynamics. And remember, it's a bell curve, right? So most of the people are booking around that 100-day date, but there's a percentage of people that are booking way further ahead, and there's a percentage of people that are booking way closer in. So you have to be aware of both sides of that.
Gotcha. That's really important. So
it's a $1 million question, but it's really a $10 answer because I know what you're going to say, but it's I got to ask it. How do people figure out what the median booking window is for their market, not their property, but for their market?
Yeah. Again, best bang for your buck, in my opinion, is you can use that on PriceLabs. Do your market dashboard on PriceLabs,
and it's $10.
$10.
It's totally worth it. There's lots of data out there, and I think a lot of people get lost in. I need to have 14 different sources of data to confirm. And if you're about to make a $2 million investment into a property, I highly recommend look at multiple sources of data.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to decide your price on a given day, understand that 1 or 2 sources of data is probably enough, and they're going to be directionally accurate. A lot of people always ask, well, is the revenue that I see in PriceLabs exactly right? No, it's not, but it's directionally accurate. And if you see 10 or 20 or 30 listings that are all grouped in the same general amount, you can be pretty confident that that's about right. I don't ever like to tell people that, like, if you see one listing that made $200,000, you're definitely going to make $200,000. That would be foolish of us to think that. And I know you're very well aware of that.
Right. I like that. Okay, so you can figure out the market median booking window. PriceLabs, that's the resource I use. Do you what about your property specifically? How is that calculated? Or how have you calculated that?
My market book or my booking window for my particular property.
That's right, like the individual property.
Yeah, it is a little more complicated of a process, but the data is available on PriceLabs. PriceLabs is getting better and better about adding more and more data to make it easier for us to access. The go-to default for me has always been to download a CSV file and do some manipulations in Excel
Yeah.
and add and subtract and divide and get everything to the place that you want it. What I'm realizing now is the way PriceLabs sets everything up is there's actually a really cool chart on neighborhood data page. I think it's actually in your portfolio analytics section, but they just added a new section where you can look at length of stay by booking window. So you can see, was it 1 to 2 months? How far out did it get booked? And you can see, oh, it was 1 to 2 months and it was 7 days.
Mhm.
Right? And you can see a graph that shows you a chart of each section. And what I really like to do is, since we're breaking things into seasons, you have to realize that high season, your booking window, maybe, 100 days is your booking window. What you may see is, okay, I get a lot more longer bookings for high season further out.
Mm.
But you don't want to look at just high season and make assumptions for the rest of the year. You want to actually look at it kind of season by season. So in Steamboat, we have high season in winter, we have mid season in summer, and our booking window in summer is like 30 days. It's nowhere near the 100 days. We end up almost the same occupancy that we do in the winter, but our ADR is less than half of what it is during high season. So very different things that you need to look at. And what you might do is have a very different minimum night rules from high season to mid season to low season, because you realize low season, I'll take a 2 night booking right now. You want to book 6 months from now? Yeah, great. Take a midweek 2 nights. It's all yours. But high season, I got a 7 night minimum on right now. I'm not taking any short bookings until we get closer.
Mhm.
You just have to understand your market and when are people booking. But I think that's a great way to look at it. Instead of doing the CSV, downloading, doing all those manipulations, just look at the charts. I think graphs tell us a lot very quickly, as opposed to having to spend so much time in Excel doing exact calculations.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's good. Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Okay, so booking window, we talked about seasonality, we talked about RevPAR. Uh, what else? What are some other, are there any other key metrics or anything that you really like to focus on for pricing?
Yeah, I think there's so many metrics out there. One of the things that I really like to encourage people, I actually started teaching this revenue management class now, and it's really like getting in my head now, because not only do I have to understand what I'm doing, but I have to understand it well enough to teach it to other people. So it's got me going through things over and over again and trying to kind of understand better in my mind what are those key metrics. So um, I like to start with, we talked about at the beginning of the show, revenue, ADR, occupancy, and RevPAR. Those are the big four. I think you add median booking window in, and that's super important. I think the other side of this is the listing optimization. And we realize more and more how important it is to have great photography and to have a really solid listing before you start doing all these crazy manipulations with your pricing. Because the reality is, if you're on page 10 and your photos suck, there's really not a whole lot I can get you a booking, but it might be at $100 and you're
Mhm.
expecting to get $1,000 for your property. You go out and you spend $1,000, $2,000, get amazing photography, get it edited really well. Um, we can be on totally different ends of the spectrum as far as pricing, right? I might get you $100 with the crappy photos you have. And the other thing I see all the time is people come to us and we get into their listing and it's like the first 5 photos are 5 photos of their kitchen.
Right.
Like, listen, I understand your kitchen's nice, but
Yeah.
We need to show 5 different spaces in your property instead of just seeing that one space. So my number one suggestion to anybody before they go down the road of hiring a revenue manager is spend the money on getting amazing photography. And I know it's shooting my business in the foot, but it's something that we realize every day. We get people who are coming to us, they're really not ready for pricing. They need great photography and they need a good listing before we start to manipulate pricing.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's a good point. I see that mistake a lot. People think that revenue managers are like miracle workers. It's like they're going to just make me more money. But the problem really wasn't simply their pricing, right? It's a combination of different things together that make up why their property's not getting booked. And so, I think it's important that, and not even booked, but maybe booked, like you said, booked at the rates that you want. That's another complaint I heard too. Well, they got it booked, but they only got it booked for X amount. It's like, yeah, because your property sucks. Like that's what it's worth right now. Like you have to update it and you have to make it look good. You have to be improving it. One of the things that I've learned from the I struggle with this, like when I do something new, I'm like, oh, I've learned this in a month, and I just started this. But like from the hotel side,
Yeah.
is like hotels are constantly like updating and learning and like trying to do new stuff. Like they're really on the forefront of innovation. Um, and short-term rental hosts are not. They're like stuck like 3 years, 4 years ago, thinking like they can just keep doing what everyone else has done before and it's gonna work year in and year out. So you're right. There's got to be some level of listing optimization, amenities, and improving your property along with the pricing side. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's the world I came from was, before I was in short-term rentals, before I was a firefighter, I ran a small hotel and I actually grew up at a bed and breakfast. And so that's where I came from. And that's where I learned a lot of what I know now was understanding those dynamics. And really the interesting thing about revenue management was I was at these small hotels. We had a 9-bedroom bed and breakfast, Tahoe. We had a 12-bedroom place in Palm Springs, California. And I was looking at the Hilton and the Hyatt, and I'm like, why are their prices different every single day? And our prices are basically different on the weekend and weekday. And I started going down the rabbit hole, and I ended up on this crazy program called Synixis, which was built for huge properties doing pricing. And I had to learn like this very, very complicated software to be able to implement it for our business. But it was like night and day. Once we implemented it, the properties just looked so much better because we were a little too high on some nights and we were a little too low on some nights. And some nights like Christmas, we were, half the price we should have been at. So really cool to see it play out now in short-term rentals as well.
yeah, no, I love that. Well, cool. Well, Jake, as we're kind of wrapping up here, um, what's like one piece of advice as a host, as someone who does revenue management? It could be really anything. One way that our listeners can cash flow positive with their short-term rentals.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to pricing, this is something I've been seeing more and more. We're all trying to grasp on to the next hot thing, the coolest thing that that Bill, that any of these amazing people that are out there that are saying, hey, do this, do this, do this. And one of the things that I learned the hard way is sometimes we're going too far. And we actually need to get back to the simplification of, are we offering a great product? Are we offering it at the right price? And are we offering great service once they're there? And if you're doing those things, yes. Can you market your property and get more people? Yes. Can you price it better and get better bookings and make more revenue? Yes. But if you don't have the basics down, I was working with someone the other day, and this was on one of my. I do some calls in a couple of groups, and it's basically open office hours. And someone said, hey, look at my pricing. And we pulled it up and she had like every single customization checked in PriceLabs. And if you've been in PriceLabs, there's a lot of
it's intense.
and so I started asking her, I was like, do you know why you have this checked? And she kind of was like, well, I think it helps like get more bookings during I'm like, listen, let me give you some advice. take off all your customizations, look at your price line, and look at your last year's bookings. Get your price line just a little bit above your bookings from last year. And as we get close, you might even need to dip below where you got your bookings last year if you still don't have bookings. But let's decomplicate everything and let's just go back to the basics and say, what is the best predictor of future price? Our past price, right? So don't go crazy with all these manipulations and end up 2 or 3 times higher than where you booked last year. Look at reality and say, I booked at $100 last year. Let's shoot for 120 and let's be really happy if we get 120. Let's not worry about getting 500. Let's get 120 and be really happy.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice. Thank you, man. So basically, don't listen to Kenny.
Just keep it. So I took away from. I'm kidding.
No, that's good. I do think you're right. Like people get too caught up in like what else is out there that I need to do, that I need to know, that I've got to do it right away. And I'm going to try all these different things at the same time. It gets very overwhelming and it's just distractions, right? It causes analysis paralysis. I see that the most. And it's keeping it simple. Like I had that last year. I was looking at my pricing. I was like trying to change something. And it wasn't working. I was like, what the, what's going on here? I opened up my customizations. It's just way too much crap over time. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm just going to hit reset, start over and let it do its thing, and then put in things as I go along. So that's really good. That's really good advice. So
Yeah. One of the big things that I'm telling all these people that are in my class with me is add complication if there is a problem, right? Don't say check in, check out only on Saturday until you see that you have Saturdays going unbooked, right? And now you have a problem, and you need to put this in place to correct that problem, right?
Yeah.
Until you have that problem, like if you're a brand new listing, you don't know what your problems are going to be yet. Don't put a bunch of roadblocks up for people to book your property, especially in those first couple of months. Get as many bookings, as short of bookings as possible, as fast as you can. Get to 10, 20 reviews. Then get into your true pricing program and figure out how to manipulate everything the right way. But I see so many people going in and they're doing so much complicated stuff and they're not solving a problem. They're just adding complication to their life.
Yep. I agree. That's really a point. So, well, cool. Jake, so if people are interested in learning more about your services, the course, your revenue management services, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah. Best way is through our website, stepbystepbnb.com. We do also have a great Facebook group. It's called Price Your STR. So just go to Facebook, search for Price Your STR. It's an amazing place where I think we're getting close to maybe 2,000 members now, but everyone in there is amazingly competent at pricing, and they have really, really great insights when people pose questions. Hey, here's what's happening to me. And I think you can learn a lot from a group like that and, not have to go hire a revenue manager or buy a course. You can start with something like that and see if it's something that piques your interest and then decide to go deeper down the rabbit hole and get into a course or something like that.
I love it. All right. So if you're interested in learning more, stepbystepbnb.com. That's how you learn more about Jake's programs and his revenue management services. So Jake, thank you so much for being on here. That was really insightful. I think a lot of people are going to learn some stuff and be able to attack the revenue management better. Or worst case scenario, they just give you a call.
We are here if you need help. So look forward to hearing the podcast and chatting with any of you that need help.
All right. Thanks, Jay, for being on. And thanks, everybody, for listening to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. I'll see you on the next one.